Let's start today's video with a very interesting pro-revenge story from Relatively Sorrowful. My ex-advisor plagiarized my work, so I exposed her, and that cost her job. Just found out about this subreddit and had to share this story. The initial reason for the revenge happened in 2013, but the revenge only happened in 2017. I'll keep everything vague as not to be recognized. For context, back in 2013, I was a graduate student pursuing my master's degree. That was my last year in the program. We had 24 months to finish all the work and the dissertation. My advisor was a professor who was very well known and experienced on my field of work. Let's call her Janet, fake name. Janet and I had worked together with research since my college days as I became part of an undergraduate research with her. At that point, we had been working for about 4 years, and as any advisor-student relationship, we more had our disagreements quite often. Janet was used to doing her experiments a certain archaic way. I knew there were better uses of our grants money and always tried to push toward a more advanced method, especially correlating data collection and statistics. However, our relationship was always good. I knew her husband and had been to her house numerous times. She was a little set on her ways, but we managed to make good progress on our field. Anyhow, by the end of 2013, I presented my dissertation to the department and was approved with flying colours. My data still wasn't published in any paper, as I wanted to have more analysis in different areas to make a more robust and better paper. With that said, my dissertation was published, and by all reasons, that is my work and my experiments. After I got my MS, I decided to pursue a PhD. While I was still going to work in the same field, I wanted to use different techniques and thus talked with Janet about going to pursue a PhD under a different professor in another university. She always encouraged me to do better and look for ways to diversify my views. I went ahead and contacted a professor outside my country in another university to pursue my PhD. I got approved and soon moved away. For the next 2 years, I still kept contact with Janet, but on the third, she stopped responding. Initially, I thought she had changed her email or something, but didn't think much of it. Time flew by, and in 2017, while reading papers and writing my own, I came across a paper that was strangely similar with my research. Interested in it, I opened it up to read. For my shock, it was a paper by my ex-advisor. She was up as advisor, and another guy, who from his curriculum is her current master's student. Reading the title, I thought, hey, that's neat. She continued researching it. But boy, I was wrong. Reading the paper, I got increasingly angry. That wasn't a new research, it was my research. My data was all in that paper, even my graphs and tables. Initially, I thought, oh well, she's also an author, and if she is citing it, there shouldn't be a problem. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. My name was nowhere near that paper, as they claimed that research as original. Now, I was livid. I sent an email to Janet confronting her, which was never replied to. However, I'm not a pushover and will never allow people to claim my own work as theirs. She made a mistake by using my data. I'm a researcher, and I keep everything I ever worked on saved in external SSDs encrypted and on my own possession. All catalogued with date entries, and even had my own dissertation to prove my work. In my country, research is financed by the governmental grants. I wrote an email to the Dean of the Grants Institution, explaining all the situation, with proof of everything. I also sent an email to journal in which that was published, contesting their paper and explaining everything. It didn't take longer than 15 days for me to get a follow-up. The institution responsible for the grant was furious. They cut all financial aid for her and her student and made a formal requirement to the university requesting her immediate termination. The journal retracted the paper and is now suing her for plagiarism. Now, after all these years, I learned that she was indeed fired and haven't been able to work in the field ever since. I never met her again and have no intention of ever doing so. Now, my work is published and I'm recognized by my contributions in the field. Maybe that was a petty thing to do, but I couldn't allow people to get away with claiming my work as theirs. Edit. Wow, didn't expect so many replies. Thank you for the words. A few things. The only reason I said it was petty is because since she is also an author, she has the right to publish it. But she needed to include me on the paper, which she didn't do. Also, there are laws in place on my country that allow the journal to sue her. This is not an international journal, that's why that happened. I work with medical research for those that asked. But I can't share the paper, as that would easily identify me. Another thing, people have been questioning my terms. On my country, a master's candidate needs to present a dissertation and a PhD candidate needs to present a thesis. Sorry if I wasn't clear enough. Cheers. The revenge was really satisfying and cool. The advisor stole OP's data and published a paper, and OP dismantled her career. This was the best retaliation I have ever heard of. The next story is from Lord S. Thor. He punched me over a fender bender. I destroyed his life. I was working as a civilian with the US military overseas, and I lived off base in an apartment complex popular among the US military. One morning, I accidentally hit another soldier's vehicle. Upon exiting the vehicle, I noticed that both our vehicles were what you could call a hoopty. A hoopty is an old car that is pretty beat up that has been passed around from service to service member, and they generally sell for $1,000, $2,000. I also recognized that I was at fault for the accident. It was a very minor accident. His rear bumper was dented in slightly, but I could hear both our cars still running. I approached the driver who had already gotten out, and he was in uniform, and I apologized and said, if it was all right with him, I'd like to negotiate a payment that I will pay him in cash, and we don't involve the authorities. I wanted to keep this simple. I'll be honest, the accident was so minor, I honestly expected him to say, nah man, it's good. But even if he wanted some money, I'd have paid him. I have always been of the opinion, if you have a fender bender and can negotiate agreeable terms between both the parties, it's best to not involve insurance police. He told me he wanted to call the police. I said we could call the police, or we could go on base together and I could give him $300. He said that wasn't enough. So I upped my offer to $500. He proceeded to punch me in the face. It was a sucker punch. He got into his car and took off, and in the process nearly ran me over. Now I had a black box in my car which recorded everything. I went to the Provost Marshal office on base, the police station, and reported the accident and the assault and showed the MP the footage, which they used his license plate to track him down. I was also asked if I wanted to involve the local authorities, press criminal charges off base. Honestly, I felt like the soldier would learn his lesson if I let UMCJ, the military court, basically handle this. And I said, not at this time. I was told it was an option. The end result was the soldier in question got 60 days of extra duty, reduction in rank, and forfeited a portion of his paycheck. Essentially, if he dealt with that, this would have been the end of the whole ordeal. Honestly, at this point, I assumed our little ordeal was over. Well, a few days after his punishment was decided on, which was not long after the incident itself, I was in the commissary, grocery store on base, shopping when the soldier who assaulted saw me and began to insult me. I told him he needed to calm down, that he should learn his lesson. He told me I was a pussy who didn't know how to take a punch. I reminded him that I held back on destroying his life. He told me he's already been punished and I can't touch him again. He left me be. A store employee witnessed the entire encounter, and I got the employee detail and reported this interaction to his command. His commander told me he had been ordered to not interact with me and would take action. His commander also recommended me I involve the local authorities since this soldier obviously isn't learning his lesson. So I did. I contacted an attorney. The attorney was unsure if we could successfully sue the soldier and said he would need a cash payment to take the case. Honestly, I was mad and I wanted to teach this guy a lesson. I agreed. It was not cheap. To keep this story short, we ended up in a court off base. We presented our evidence. The soldier in question had decided to represent himself. Several times in the court, he had outbursts. The judge ended up granting me a judgment of approx. $50,000 USD. When the judgment was given, the soldier called the judge a son of bitch, and that the army would cover for him. So the judge changed his judgment to $80,000, and the judge then asked me if I also wanted to press charges against this soldier in criminal court. Honestly, it was obvious this guy wasn't going to learn a lesson. I told the judge I wanted to pursue criminal charges in addition to the judgment. My lawyer later advised me that if I ever wanted to see the money, I should pursue an international hold. With my judgment, it's likely that a judge would grant me an international hold. An international hold is basically where this soldier would not be allowed to leave the country until I was paid my $80,000. Also, he told me that according to the agreement between the US military and the host country, the US military would honor the international hold. Basically, the US military would not protect him or move him out of country to avoid punishment. Honestly, by this point, I had paid my lawyer thousands of dollars, and I honestly didn't feel like paying thousands of dollars and getting nothing for it. So I said, yes, I want to go forward with the international hold. About a month later, the international hold was granted, and the US military was informed of this. 2 months after that, the criminal case was over, and the soldier was sentenced to 90 days in jail. By this point, the soldier had been moved onto the base into his barracks by his commander. I remember the day I was informed the MPs handed him over to the local authorities to begin his 90-day jail sentence. Did I mention he still owed me $80,000? I heard nothing for a year, and then, one day, I get a call from his commander. His commander wants me to make a statement in regards to the case. I go in and make the statement. During the statement, I find out the US military was in the process of chaptering the soldier out of the US military. The commander also informed me that he was close to coming up with the money to pay me so he could have the international hold lifted. The commander also asked me if my lawyer would be willing to make a statement. I contacted my lawyer, who also made a statement about the facts of the case. A few weeks later, his ex-wife contacted me. When this all started, I knew he was married. Guess his wife decided to divorce him. She informed that his ex-husband had the money and needed the details on how to pay me. I provided her the details, and a few days later, I got the payment and contacted his ex-wife to inform her I had been paid. She then asked me to send a receipt so he could have the international hold lifted and returned to the States. I asked her how he got the money. She said he maxed out his credit and also had family help out. Also during this conversation, I had found out the army had chaptered him out of the military. I sent her the receipt, and that was the last I ever heard from his side. TL. Data. I get into a fender bender with a soldier. I try to resolve things with him. He punches me. He gets UCMJ action, a civil judgment, 90 days in jail, a divorce. I actually do not know if the divorce is connected, but I imagine this case didn't help his marriage. A ton of debt and a loss of his career. I took his $80,000 and bought myself a brand new car and used the rest of the money to put down on an investment property. FAQ. This post blows up. I turned off inbox replies because it was too much, so I felt like answering some common questions. Am I worried about the guy getting revenge on me? No, he's back in the States, I'm still overseas. He most likely has a criminal record, which means he wouldn't even be allowed past immigration. Plus, since then, I've taken a new job, moved, etc. Not connected to his incident, just how things are. Plus, this happened many years ago. The amount seems high. The actual amount was in a foreign currency, and I rounded up and adjusted figures, but it was very high. I did suffer from a black eye, and his behavior, after the fact, didn't help. Also, this incident happened in an Asia country during a time period in which we had several other high-profile incidents with US service members screwing up. My incident was not high-profile at all, but that all played a role. Honestly, I expected around 15K, 20K. Also in this country, settlements for damages are based upon your ability to pay and tend to be on the higher side. I think the court also thought he was an American and could afford it. However, the amount even shocked my lawyer. Why did his commander recommend I take this to civil authorities? I got the feeling his commander was tired of this soldier. I suspect I wasn't the first incident. What country did this happen in? I don't wish to disclose that, however, several people in the comments section have guessed correctly. Actually, someone who was familiar with the incident PM'd me. So this blew up more than I intended. I will say this. It happened in Asia, in a country with a large troop presence. Why did I go so far? Honestly, that was never my intention. In fact, I decided to report to the military instead of going straight to the local authorities, because I figured doing so would allow us to deal with the issue in-house, and his punishment would be limited. I was right. He didn't learn his lesson. However, once I got the local authorities, my lawyer involved, it turned into something I didn't expect. Also, by the time that dust had settled, I had paid my lawyer a significant sum of money, had to use up my vacation days. In total, this entire incident cost me many thousands of dollars in lawyer costs, vacation time, etc. So, I did want my money back at that point. Why did he get a jail sentence for simple assault? So in this country, they do not like to give suspended sentences to foreigners. I suspect a local national would have gotten a suspended sentence. I do have a local national friend who was involved in an assault many years ago and he got 90 days suspended sentence. However, my guess is the judge gave him jail time instead of suspended sentence because he was a foreigner. However, I was not involved very much in the criminal case. Questions about his wife, ex-wife. Truth be told, I don't know much about this. I do not know if she was his ex-wife because of this or not. I also never saw his ex-wife in person, the only involvement I had with her, at the very end. This revenge was brutal and destroying. A mistake of the soldier makes him pay 80,000 USD and 90 days in jail. It was really a destroying revenge. If he had behaved in a reasonable manner, he might have not faced all this. The revenge was really mind-blowing. The next story is from Flight Geek 24. Don't cheat on your graduation lifeline. Sui, 19mm, and my now ex, GF, 18F, have been together for more than a year. We were in the same class during middle school and high school now. A 2-year friendship eventually evolved into a relationship. You all know how it is. We were happily together, at least so I thought, since December 2019. I thought everything was great between us the whole time, although recently, about March, I noticed her becoming very distant and barely writing first, dry texting, etc. I asked her multiple times if everything is okay and gave her some space, but it continued for the next few months. I was naturally very upset as I've been through hell and back together with her when she was going through depression and a really hard time at the end of 2020. It suddenly felt like all this time was wasted and worth nothing. I, as a naive high schooler, truly believed that she was the one. It was serious after all. We matched perfectly together. We spent about 3 full months crying together at night when she was going through a rough time. We had similar plans for the future, similar interests, and it seemed we were meant for each other. My GF, let's call her Caroline, was studying to become a lawyer, so she was mostly into humanities subjects. I, on the other hand, am studying biochemistry for medical school. I apologize if this is all confusing, different. We live in Europe. She was required to attend at least one science subject to graduate: physics, biology, chemistry, psychology. She always hated these subjects and just took them because they were necessary to graduate. She ended up picking chemistry as I was a natural and tutored 9 and 10 graders chemistry in my free time, and I always helped her with assignments, etc. It started as helping her before exams and assignments so she could get a good pass grade, and after her rough time warped into me writing half of the assignments for her. In February, she started to do everything with me again though. We had online the whole time. Anyways, enough backstory. After noticing Caroline started to get distant and she never properly answered my questions regarding her behavior, I wanted to see how far it would go. For 1 week, I didn't invite her, call her, text her first. In a total of 1 week, she called me 3 times. Twice to ask me about her assignment and once telling me how she felt insecure and bad. I'm not a dickhead. I helped her out with her school stuff and comforted her when she felt down. Me being the naive, love is perfect lovebird, I am chalked it up to her feeling depressed again, but feeling embarrassed about it. I continued helping and comforting her for the next month until nothing changed, and she never opened up. I was honestly doubting everything by then. Is it me? What am I doing wrong? Etc. I tried everything I could. Eventually, I asked her friends if something had happened, but they said she was the same as always towards them. I knew something was up, but I didn't know what it was yet. One day, when she came over to my place, it was only the second time she had done that in March. Usually she came at least twice a week. We were sitting in my room and talking while she was trying out Valorant. After she went to my kitchen to make herself something, I hear a notification from her phone. I'm usually not a snooper, but I had a quick look at her screen that lit up. I wouldn't be able to read the message or who it was anyway. It was a Discord notification. I was very surprised. I knew for a fact that she didn't have it a month ago. Plus, she only plays Minecraft once in a while. She never uses Discord or anything. So the next morning, I did some snooping, and sure enough, I found a whole other Instagram account of hers, where she branded herself to be an aesthetic gamer girl. Not that there is anything wrong with that. She had never told me anything about this. I couldn't find any of her friends following her on that account either. Sure enough, she had her Discord username in her bio. Curious and TBH asshole me decided it would be a good idea to create a throwaway account and try to text her to see what she was all about. Before you complain to me, I know I was an asshole here. After texting her on my new account, we talked for a bit until she became flirty. We played a few Bed Wars games together, once again on a throwaway account I bought for $1 LMAO. I kind of broke down and started questioning my sanity. I had been with her all this time, and through so much I couldn't believe she would do this to me. After the sadness came from the anger, I wanted to know how much she took it. I found it hard to believe that she would just casually flirt with guys like this. After setting up my first recon mission plan, I found out more about her until I found out about her supposed boyfriend. At that point, I had a huge emotional breakdown, and I felt I've wasted so much time helping someone who would betray me like this. From her stories, I would later find out they were sleeping with each other for a whole month by now, about when her behavior started to change. At this point, I started hatching my revenge plan. I know I would not let her off the hook this easily. I spent 2 weeks pulling all-nighters making sure I had all my work done till the end of the year, until graduation. I spend all my remaining time creating fake chemistry textbook pages so I could make my pro-revenge more believable. All of the information was wrong. I knew I had to give her a taste of her own medicine, betray her like she had me. For the remaining 2 months of the school year, O fed her all this fake information and made sure she got all of her assignments wrong. I knew she wouldn't be able to tell anyone she was copying off me, as our high school had a very strict rule for plagiarism. As much as 3 small cheating attempts on small exams could get you expelled. So after letting the pot stew for those 2 painful, awful months, I let the hit the fan. As our teacher had to handle an outrageous amount of classes, she always checked our assignments late, often by 2 or 3 months all at once. I knew I could use this fact to my advantage. After she submitted her final assignments that were worth a huge percentage of our final graduation grade, I told her I knew about her shenanigans had been still ongoing for 3 entire months by now. I told her how she hurt me and how it will come back to haunt her. I made sure of that. She mostly brushed me off and acted as if I were the villain, as I couldn't just leave her and that she was only friends with that guy. Although I told her something was going to happen, I never told her what it would be. Trust me, she never saw it coming. 1 week later, the end-of-year results rolled around. When we received our final grades, I was over the moon as I passed with flying colours. On the other hand, her not so much. Due to her final assignments and all quarter 4 work equaling to an F, she called me crying and asked for help. She told me she wouldn't be able to graduate if she wouldn't receive at least a passing grade for this year. She told me our teacher gave her a final chance after telling her how disappointed she was. Caroline has 2 more months at school with extra one-on-one online lessons with our Saint teacher. Honestly, props go out to our teacher for giving her another chance. TBH, I felt really bad for her and her situation, knowing very well if she didn't work her ass off in these 2 months, in a subject she hated, she would have to repeat the last year, without someone constantly helping her with her chem. That compassion quickly went away, and I told her I would help her, but only if she apologized and paid me my regular tutoring fees. Caroline went full-on ballistic after that, and screamed at me how I could do this to her. I hung up, and she called me a few seconds after, apologizing and agreeing to pay me for my help. She now has 2 months of intense memorizing with her ex if she wants to graduate. TL. DR. My GF cheated on me, so I fed her fake chemistry information and almost made her fail chemistry. Now she's paying me to tutor her. Edit. Now she has to study for those 2 months, and when the regular end of the school year comes, she has to complete a series of exams. Think 4-8, covering the most important topics from this year. If she passes all of them, she will pass chemistry. Update 08.0621 June. Wow, I really didn't expect post to blow up whatsoever. Thanks you all Redditors for your support and contributions. Special mentions go out to RS Slash, Redditor and Ask Goblin for featuring my stories in their YouTube videos. After 4 weeks of preparing, Caroline has actually learned a lot. She's even broken off contact with that guy, apologized, and taken me out to dinner a few times to show her gratitude for still helping her. I hope she was actually able to realize what mistakes she committed in the past and won't do the same again. She was able to take her first exam today in the morning and is quite confident about it. Her next 5 will be spread along the next 2 final weeks. She will find out if this extra work is enough latest on the 23rd of June. I keep you guys update on further details and events that are relevant to this story. Once again, thank you all for your support. Update. So firstly, I apologize to all of you for this late update, but I was quite busy with collage applications, moving, etc. It's been a long way for Caroline, but she's made it and completed all criteria required to graduate. She's also gotten into quite a good university, and she's learned a lot, not just chemistry, but she's actually gotten a much better work ethic and motivation to do stuff she doesn't enjoy. In the meantime, I've moved on and am with someone new. We're still friends, but set clear boundaries as to not repeat history once again. I'm very happy the way things are as I've gotten into my first choice medical college. I've already moved out about 2 weeks ago, and I'm living in the same city as before because it's a major European city and has great universities. Caroline's collage is located in a different country and she's moving tomorrow. We've met today to say goodbye, but we plan to keep in contact, as mentioned before, only as friends. The revenge was both clever and satisfying. By turning the tables on Caroline, OP ensured she faced the consequences of her betrayal. However, what OP did in the end was kind of him. Kudos to the man. Bye-bye for now. Let's see you tomorrow.